Hi everyone, Gil at CloseCallSports.com with a brand new feature for you. It's called Officiating on the Big Screen. We're going to take a pop culture look at TV shows or movies where there might be umpiring or refereeing going on depending on your sport. And we're going to see what they got right, what they didn't, and I'm going to analyze it from a standpoint of what if this was a real game? How would we expect our officials to be acting in real life? The first episode is going to be Star Trek. It's called Take Me Out to the Holosuite. And, well, let's see what they got right and what they didn't. So first and foremost here, you see that the umpire is going from east to west, as I call it, from side to side when sweeping the plate. Usually an umpire will sweep the plate from the front to the back and then back again as opposed to side to side. And usually the umpire will actually get out in front of the plate, turn around, so he's facing the stands behind home plate to do the sweep rather than facing toward the field of play.
Computer, eliminate the spectators.
Two things here. Number one, this show was very much ahead of its time. With COVID, the pandemic, 2020, maybe a little bit of 2021, yeah, the crowd will be eliminated. There will be no spectators. So somehow the show got that right. But more importantly, the umpire's hat is, well, a stereotypical umpire's hat on a TV show. In real life, the umpire will not wear his hat backwards behind home plate. You'll actually wear the hat front side the way that you would normally wear a hat. And the plate hat, to fit under the mask, will actually have a bill that is slightly shorter than a normal hat. The bill is shorter so that it can fit underneath a mask or what have you, rather than it'll be backwards like we see here. So that's incorrect, but what is correct is that number one, the umpire appears to be wearing the correct shirt, and number two, the umpire appears to be carrying the face mask with the left hand under the left arm, and that's the proper hand to deal with the mask when you're not wearing it.
Batter up!
When he said batter up, the one thing that I thought of that I didn't say earlier on the previous clip was actually when he said play ball. The command is actually play. There's no play ball. The rule book just says play. So you're either saying play, or to pause the action, you're saying time. But play ball doesn't actually appear in the book.
All right, Niners, let's hear some chatter.
Hey, baby!
And then this is a Hollywood thing. When you say play, that coincides with you pointing at the pitcher. You're not going to say play without pointing. And you might point without saying play to put a ball back in play. But at the very beginning of the game, you're generally going to have a concurrent play with a point. Before the pitch comes in, the umpire's positioning is a bit suspect. We have what's called the slot between the catcher and the batter. The sweet spot between the catcher and the batter is what's known as the slot. Usually a plate umpire will position him or herself there and have the head in that region rather than having a head above the catcher. This is probably a good safety issue, so that's why we do it. And it's also for consistency in how we see pitches. You want to get in the slot, because if you have your head above the catcher's head, you put yourself at risk from that elevated position out exposed over the plate of foul balls or pitches that might get away from the catcher. So the umpire should be adjusted a little bit to his left, perhaps, in the slot, and his stance is sort of suspect as well.
Strike three!
You're not going to call strike three with that kind of a mechanic when the batter clearly swings and misses. There's no need to do the called strike mechanic on a swing and a miss. That's pretty obvious.
Strike three! Strike three! Out!
You want to try that again?
Hey! Colonel, stay cool. Don't do anything to get yourself thrown out.
Wouldn't dream of it, Captain.
Now, this is one-person mechanics, so I'm not going to expect the plate umpire to be able to do anything about this situation. You're not going to break up any potential unsportsmanlike activity that's going to be occurring in the middle of the infield, but it's something to keep an eye on for later. Oh, you're probably not going to have a second baseman wearing earrings, or any jewelry for that matter as well. Maybe a chain at the highest levels, but probably not earrings. At least not that size.
Was that slide at second legal?
Afraid so.
Doesn't seem very sporting.
That's a perfect summary. Slide's legal. but it wasn't very sporting. So again, as an umpire for game management, it's something to keep an eye on later. Maybe there's going to be a hard slide. Maybe someone's going to throw at someone else's retaliation. Again, the slide might be legal because it was directly into the base and the player remained on the base even though they did make contact with the fielder. It was clearly below the knee, clearly legal. But if the team takes offense, which, again, the second baseman, by virtue of confronting the player, made it clear that they took umbrage with that. So it's something to keep an eye on for later. And if something were to happen, you know that that's where it's coming from. And so you can prepare as an umpire for either warnings, ejections, whatever you have to do, because you know that there's some sort of an animosity between the teams from a slide that's legal but perhaps unsporting. Again, it's sort of a half mechanic of safe. You do want to extend the arms out fully, but other than that, the runner was safe.
Strike two. Big stick.
I'm not sure what mechanic that was for a foul ball, but it's usually this.
Time.
Accurate. Umpire has the indicator tucked on the left hand. That is absolutely the correct thing, because the right hand you're usually going to have free to call strikes, whether you're going to do a fist or with the point. So yeah, the indicator having that on the left hand, remember it's an indicator, not a clicker, that is accurate.
Let's go, batter. Do not rush me.
Actually, on pace of play, they might want you to rush them. This is what I call the Gary Cedarstrom way of wearing the mask, and I very much am a fan of it, but a lot of people aren't. So just know what assigners and supervisors you're dealing with. But if you're working for me, which you're probably not, I'm a fan of this. Look. The batter should be wearing a helmet. There is no reason the runner is wearing a helmet and the batter is not wearing a helmet. Other than Hollywood.
Strike three. What? What are you talking about? That ball is at least a half a meter out. Low and outside.
Two things. Number one, I didn't see actually the called third strike mechanic. We saw the called third strike mechanic earlier in the game on pitches that were clearly swinging and misses, and now that there's an actual called third strike, it's just a sort of a point off to the side, Hollywood. Second of all, the batter's going to argue, that's fine. The manager comes out, that's when you have to get sort of your antennas up, because you're not supposed to come out of the dugout to argue balls and strikes.
What the hell were you looking at? You can't tell me that ball was over the plate. What were you doing? Regenerating?
Caught the outside corner.
Outside corner? Right foot. That was a ball and you know it. We should have two men on.
As an umpire, you're generally not going to want to have two people arguing with you at the same time. Once the manager comes out, even for this type of a prohibitive ball and strike argument where the manager's leaving his positions to argue balls and strikes and could easily have been ejected already, but once the manager comes out, the player's role should be done. If you're in a one-person crew, you don't have any help to get that player out. But somehow, we need to make it clear that we are only going to be speaking with one person at a time. If the team refuses to abide by that term, which is fairly benign, I would just like to speak to one person, one-on-one. That's a fair battle. Two-on-one is a gang-up. But if the team refuses to abide, that's when warnings and ejections should be doled.
Gentlemen, you are trying my patience.
That's as good as enough as a warning, and you'll notice that the manager is getting his player out of the way. That's what we want to see. So we'll give the manager a little bit more leeway. Again, not necessarily for a balls and strikes argument, which is prohibited by rule, but for a standard, if it was a safe out call, for instance. If the manager is helping us by getting the player away, we're going to give the manager a little bit more room to argue.
Well, no, wait. You stole the run from us. You stole it just as if you reached the...
I've had a lot of coaches accuse me of doing things. And no, we do not steal runs. You steal bases, but we don't steal runs.
Been torn off the scoreboard. You stole it from us. You're out of here! What?
This is great because the manager clearly touches the umpire, and as soon as there is contact during an argument between manager and umpire in that aggressive fashion, that is an ejectable offense. And just pay attention to this next line because the umpire is going to say exactly why that is.
No player shall at any time make contact with the umpire in any manner. The prescribed penalty for the violation is immediate ejection from the game. Rule number 4.06, subsection A, paragraph 4. Look it up, but do it in the stands. You're gone!
This is great. Two things. Number one, yes, that's actually the rule. 4.06A, unsportsmanlike conduct. At the time that this episode was filmed, this was the rule. In the 2015 reorganization of the rules, the numbering changed, but when this episode was filmed, it was 4.06A. No manager, player, substitute, coach, trainer, or bat boy shall at any time, whether from the bench, the coach's box, or on the playing field or elsewhere, so on and so forth. Making contact with the umpire, you can get thrown out. And then the umpire does exactly what we like to see umpires do after the situation, especially if you're by yourself. Turn around. If you can walk away, walk away. If you're in your position and you're just occupying that, fine. But there's no further need to engage with a player or a manager who has been ejected at this point. So this is actually great situation handling from this umpire after he was touched by an angry manager. So that is the end of our first episode of Umpiring on the Big Screen. I hope you enjoyed it. Visit us online at closecallsports.com. If you have any suggestions of other movies, TV shows, or other pop culture references for us to take a look at in this same vein, let us know in the comments or at closecallsports.com. We'll see you on the website.